Hello there. As you can see, I'm all decked out to celebrate Read Across America Day this March 2nd. It's Dr. Seuss's birthday, and the National Education Association way back in 1998 decided to designate this day as Read Across America Day to help motivate children and hopefully adults to get into books and then escape into the world of reading. Today I'm going to help celebrate by sharing one of my books, which is only on in digital form as of right now, from the Fangirls series, based on women who love to go to meet authors and cover models and the stories that evolve based off of those romances. So today we're going to pick up with the first in the series, Nikki. She is going to be left work, going to be at Barnes & Noble trying to get her work done, but she's so distracted because of a writer she's already met. So now let's get in touch, meet at Barnes & Noble and see what's going to happen next. Before settling in, she ordered a coffee, 2 sugars and a drop of cream, and a sesame seed bagel. Now she could focus. And she needed to focus. If she didn't get the reports done by tomorrow morning, Peter was going to do more than give her a reaming. He was going to offer her head to the corporate guillotine so he could spare his, and she would deserve it. She had never been the slacker at work, always the industrious one, which was probably why everything was dumped on her. Give it to Nikki. She'll get it done. It never mattered that she was already spinning enough plates as it was. Stephanie, on the other hand, had the right amount of nonchalance that kept her employed, but never overwhelmed. Nikki needed to take a few lessons from her, and then Nikki would be able to enjoy the gossip Stephanie was always spewing. Popping the lid off her coffee, allowing it to cool enough to sip, she reached for the first folder. However, with the folder open and the numbers staring at her, she found the last thing she wanted to do was work on those damn reports. Her attention kept being drawn to the section of books labeled sci-fi fantasy. He did say he wrote fantasy books, right? She stared at the section, her pen held useless in her hand. Did he even tell me the names of his books? If he did, she didn't remember. I could find him by his last name, though, except she didn't remember that either. Crap. He only said it once. Think, Nikki, think. She glanced back down at the spreadsheets in front of her. No, don't think. Work. I have to get these done. She blew a breath of frustration out as she picked up her coffee and took a sip, staring at the column of numbers. Edwards. Theo D. Edwards, I think. She jerked her gaze back to the sci-fi fantasy section, as if she could see the books with the authors' names printed on the spines. But what if he had lied? Maybe that's the reason he didn't ask for her number. He made the whole thing up because he had been busted fantasizing about mermaids and spit out the first story that popped into his head. That wouldn't make him look like a pervert. Men had been concocting those flimsy fabrications for centuries in order to cover that fact up. Being a writer would be a great alibi for what he was doing. Definitely creative. He didn't give her his number or ask for hers because then, if she ever discovered he lied to her, she would never be able to confront him about it. That sneaky son of a bitch. Before she considered what she was doing, or rather what she was supposed to be doing instead, Nikki bolted out of her seat, abandoning her work to search out the lies she just knew she had been told. She left the small cafe area and marched straight for the fantasy section, her temper percolating at the assumed insult. The books were stocked alphabetically by author, so it should not be too hard to... There it was. The books were actually there. The Sword of Samarla's trilogy. She stared, dumbfounded, unable to believe she was seeing. He hadn't lied after all. She lifted the first paperback from its slot. Enter the Raven. The cover had a dark man wearing a hood that came to a point over the man's nose, both resembling a bird's beak. Flipping the book over, she read the summary for the publisher. While fantasy wasn't necessarily her genre of choice, she much preferred steamy romances to heat up her evenings, she had to admit the story sounded intriguing. She opened the book to the back flap, and there was Theo staring back at her, just as shaggy in appearance as he was last night at the Perk and Grind. She found herself smiling, and without remembering walking back over to her table, found herself standing there in front of her chair. She just laughed at herself as she sat down, opening the book to the prologue. It wouldn't hurt to just peruse a paragraph or two. As she began to read, she couldn't refrain from smiling. He hadn't lied. So why didn't he ask for my number? While that particular puzzle annoyed her, she didn't allow the question to distract her from the distraction that was already keeping her from her work. This discovery was just too exciting not to explore. It was like a new adventure in the palms of her hands, and Theo, an author she had actually spent time with, was her guide. Pushing the folder's reports aside, she continued to read. Hopefully, you find books that capture your attention like that just as well. I hope you take time today, if you haven't done it already, to find an author that you like, whether traditionally published or indie author. Give them a shot, support them, leave their reviews for the books that you enjoy. Thanks for joining us.